Hi, it's Amy here, and today I'm going to be showing you how to make your very own do-it-yourself sticker sheet set. They're really fun. You can use any stamp, and they make an excellent gift. So let's get started. So I'm going to start here first with just plain white and red cardstock, and that's going to be my base for this sticker set. Now I want a really simple tone-on-tone pattern paper for this set, so I'm going to bring out my key ring here, and it's just got all my distress inks on it. This is a tone-on-tone look, so that means I'm going to use an ink that's very close to the paper color. So I'm going to pick out the red that closest match. It's this one here. And what I can do is just flip this over and take a look on the back on what ink that is, and that just gets me closer to what I want. It makes it easy, makes it simple and fast, and then I can have the look I want without going through a bunch of samples. So I'm going to use my Misty tool here. I'm going to show you how I use mine. Everybody uses theirs differently. There's no right way, wrong way. Please do whatever you're comfortable with. I'm just going to simply ink up my stamp here, which is a really cute plaid pattern, with my Fire Brick Distress ink, and I'm just going to go through and continue inking that until I get the pattern just where I want it. I'm done with my paper, but I just want to show you really quickly here that it's okay if it doesn't turn out perfect. You can see here there's some parts they're stamped a little bit darker, I've got some smudging, but don't worry about it. I'm going to show you how that's going to completely disappear by the time we're done. My silhouette is ready to go and cut this. I've included an SVG file, so if you'd like to use that, go ahead and do that. So while that's cutting, I just want to show you really quick. This is my key ring that I was talking about earlier. I have here several different variations. So I have a second generation stamp, a watercolor, and then of course the tone on tone. It's just a really easy tool that helps me identify what I want to do. It helps me get things more quickly done. And then this other one here is my favorite. It's different distress ink blends. So when I go to make a card, I just pull this out and I take a look at it, and I can get an idea of what kind of colors I want for my background. And if I find one I like, I just flip it over, and you can see they're easily marked here, so I know exactly what inks to pull out. I know which ones are going to blend together really beautifully, so that I don't have a lot of practice to do before I make that card. Alright, my pieces are ready to go, ready to assemble, and I just want to show you really quick. You can see these spots here that it didn't stamp completely, but not to worry. These other pieces are going to go right on top, and no one's going to know the difference. Alright, you don't have to do this next step, but I just like to lay everything out. I like to put it all together, see what it's going to look like, put each piece next to each other, make sure that everything fits correctly the way it's supposed to. I like to get an idea before I start gluing or stamping or anything like that, so that I don't have to go back if I make a mistake. You can skip this stuff if you want to, but I'm a little bit of a perfectionist, so I'm going to go through and make sure every piece goes where it needs to go. Okay, so the other thing I like to do is take my stamp set out and then take a look at what kind of sentiments are on it, what I want to be using. I absolutely adore this elf one. It's so stinking cute. But I'm noticing it's not quite some of the phrases that I'm wanting. I want maybe something a little different. So I'll go through and look through everything. But I do like these tiny stamps, the holly and the little stars for the background. So I'm going to go ahead and use the Simon Says Stamp Fog ink. Just make it really light and faint so our colors on our colored images really pop. So don't worry about being perfect, just stamp it randomly, just kind of all over. We want it to just have a nice little background effect. It's okay if they're layered on top of each other. We just want it to be the perfect little touch of pattern, so that way our cute little elf pops in front of it. I'm going to use my Misty here to go ahead and stamp my elf. I like to use medical tape to hold it down in place because it really has a tendency to hold the pieces without kind of tearing the paper off the back when I take it off. I know lots of people like the magnets, but I'm just not fond of them. Use whatever works for you. Here I'm going to go ahead and line up my stamp absolutely perfectly. I'd rather take my time lining it up here than having to cut out an entirely new elf. I mean, that would just be a bummer. So now I'm going to close the lid. I'm going to grab my Memento black ink, because that Memento black ink, I really love the way it works with the Copics. You can use whatever works best for you. I'm going to ink it up. I'm going to stamp it, press nice and hard, and then of course out comes a perfect little elf, which is why we all love the Misty, am I right? So I'm going to take that off, and I'm going to go to the next thing, which is going to be our cute little bells. Now I got to tell you, with the bells, I have a tendency when I have multiple items I'm stamping on the Misty, I like to layer them on top of each other so I don't have to keep replacing them on the tape. So let me show you what I mean by that. So I've got the first one, it's down, it's glued, I'm just going to line up another one on top loosely, just so it's, you know, perfectly the same shape. And so I know it's in place, and I'll just ink up my stamp and stamp it. And as long as I do this slowly and carefully, it won't move. And then I can pull that off and then put the other bells on top and continue to do this over and over again so that all my bells are done. All right, we are ready to go. We have all our pieces, we're stamped, and now it's time to do the fun part, which is coloring. We all love coloring, right? That's why we do what we do. So before I start, I like to do a little scratch piece of paper of the colors I want to use, and I like those bright, festive, kind of neon Christmas colors. I'm kind of weird that way. I'm just not traditional about it all. So use whatever colors you like best for this. Please don't feel like you got to do this. So I'm going to pull out my skin tones here, and as I go along, I'll tell you what markers I'm using. I'll also include below everything I'm using. So let's start out with EO4 here. We're going to go in, and the first thing I'm going to do, I like to work dark to light, and I like to add my shadows first. So I'm going to add shadows on the left side of his face and moving over to the right. The light's going to be coming in on the right side, so I'm going to put just a tiny bit of dark over there near the brim of his hat, okay, and then a little inside of his ears where there might be a fold inside the ears. And I'm just doing the teeniest, tiniest amount here, like a really light touch. I'm going to go over that now with some E11 and kind of over the other one, but really close to it. So I'm adding just a tiny bit. I don't want it to be super dark here. And the way I like to say it is, if you're kind of like, if you had a sunburn and you're using your finger to just barely touch the sunburn because it hurts so bad, it's that kind of super light touch that you're using. So you're only using the very, very tiny tip of your Copic marker, okay? So just go really, really light with this, because I mean, when you're done, if you'd like to add more, you have the option to add more if you've barely touched it with any color, right? So now I'm going to go in, and my third step is going to be my E21. Now I'm going to pull in a little bit more of that color on the left side of the face and a little on the ears. I'm going to come in a little bit fatter, a little bit deeper. I'm starting to press a little bit harder here. Okay, just adding those colors and working them in. Now I'm going to take my EO1. This is going to be the lightest shade I'm going to use on the face, and then I'm just going to go over the entire face with it. And what we've done is we've just kind of laid down the color where we need it to be. I'm going over the ears too, don't forget those. I've laid down the color, but I've saturated his face with it, so now we can go in and add a second layer. Now, first thing I want to do before the second layer is the RV23, which is a really dark bright pink, and then the RV21, which is a lighter shade. But when you put this on, you're going to be like, whoa, this like really stands out. Don't worry about this, okay, because we're going to go over it again. Now, the second layer is really important because right now the paper's saturated, but we want the color to be really vibrant and really pop. We want to have that depth and the shadow and the light, okay? So we're going to start all over and do it all over again. We're going to start with our EO9, and we're going to go in there and put it in the same spots we did before with that super light touch, really slight, really narrow, okay? We want to follow the brim of his hat because his hat would leave a shadow, right? So we want to keep doing that, and a tiny bit on the edge of his face. We're going to work in color a little bit further than you did before. I'm going to take my E11, and with that same light touch, we're going right next to the EO9. We're just slightly going a little bit further out with the color, okay? So you want to just keep adding and adding and layering that color. And I know for some people the second layer feels like it's time consuming, but believe me, it's worth it. You're going to want to do it. So now we're just going to go over this with the E21, our next color, and again, we're working it in just a little bit more than we did before. So if you put just a slight shadow on the left side of the face with the E21, I want you to bring it out just a tad bit further, okay, just a tiny bit. And don't forget those ears. Now the last step is we're going to take that EO1 and just go over everything with it, all where your light spots are. You don't want to go over where the dark was, because if we do that, we take it out. So just where the light was is where we want to hit it, okay? Now at the end of all that, sometimes I still feel like it needs just a tiny bit more depth, so sometimes I'll go in with EO9 and add a tad bit more. You do not have to do this step. It's just something that I really personally like the look of. Alright, geez guys, I just noticed my hands were completely inked up. Wash them, I'm clean, I'm good to go. Somebody needs to tell me. All right, let's get started on the reds. So first thing I'm going to do is pick up my deepest shade, just like I did with the skin tones, because I like to work dark to light, and add R59. Now I'm going to go in and do the same thing with the face. I'm going to add the shadow to the left side of his face, or excuse me, the left side of his hat. Same concept, different part. Okay, but so I'm going to add a little bit darkness there in that crease, because that's where darkness would be if the fabric was folded over, and on the top of the brim of his hat. When you add those really dark tones, what it does is it gives it that kind of 3-dimension, and we want that look because it looks really great. It makes your image pop. I'm going to take R37 following the R59, and I'm just going to go over that edge just really slightly, start to work it into the hat a little bit further each time, but I want to keep a concentration of my darker colors on the left side of his hat and leave the right side of his hat for the light. The next color we're going to get is RV29, okay? So I'm going to take that and continue working it in, just leaving a tiny little bit on the tip of his hat, because really if the light's coming from the right, it wouldn't really hit all the way on the other side of his hat. But I want to make sure I leave lots of room for the light. And the reason is because sometimes when you're adding that light, you want to give yourself a little bit of room to work. So as you can see here, I'm adding R32, and it's too much light. It doesn't need to be that much light, but I like to add that much so that when I do my second layer, I have the option to add more dark and get a feel for where I exactly want the light. I've given myself a little room to play. I'm going to do my second layer, and then it'll all blend together beautifully. Alright, so I'm going to start on his jacket here using YG06 and YG23 and also BG13. It's kind of an odd color combination, but I really love it. And I gotta apologize here. For some reason, it didn't fully record the video on this spot, but what you can see the video skip to is me adding my second layer. So you can definitely get a feel for where I put the lights and shadows. And what I did is I used my BG13 as my darkest color and put that color in, my YG06 as my medium, and then that YG23 as the light. It really makes it pop, and I love the vibrant color it gives it. It's almost neon. It's really pretty. So please give it a try. Okay, so you can see here, this is the same process I followed on the feet as I did on the jacket. So I put in my BG13 as my shadow, and then I go in with my YG06, and not only do I go over the BG color, but I add a little bit of that YG6 on its own, leaving a very small spot for the highlight. And the highlight, what we're going to use is that YG23, okay? And just putting that in the little tiny bit of highlight. You can see there on the jacket that the jacket has that really bright pop of green, and that comes from that really strong contrast in color that I love so much. So feel free to use whatever greens you want to use. I just really love this combination. I kind of like the neon pop of that really bright green and the contrast of the darker blue-green. All right, we're going to work on the brim of his hat. I'm going to add a little bit of shadow to it with C2. Again, working from the left side, adding a little bit of shadow, and then just going right across the base of the brim of his hat to add just a tiny bit. Now I don't want to add too much because this is supposed to be white. We just want to have a little bit of contrast. So I'm going to go over that where some, oh, excuse me, I'm getting tongue-tied. I'm getting all caught up here because I picked up the wrong pen. So, okay, the pen we're using is BOO. That is the pen. And we're going over that just slightly, over that C2, just to add a little bit more contrast. Now we want to leave that white because that's going to come into play later when we add our stickles, and we'll get to that part. But right now, just add a little bit of that blue on the bottom part of the rim of the hat. All right, he's coming together. He's looking cute. You guys are doing great. Let's keep going. Let's pick up our B05, and we're going to start adding some more depth on the smaller parts. So we're going to do the buttons, and then we're going to add a little drop shadow underneath his jacket onto his shorts. Now remember, when you're working on a really tiny areas like these tiny shorts or the tiny buttons, you do not have a lot of room to blend 3 or 4 colors. So we're going to jump from our darkest color to our lightest color. Okay, that way we can get that contrast in darkness and light without having to use a ton of colors to make it happen. Those colors still blend together beautifully without having to use 3 or 4 colors. And it'll work because the areas are so tiny. So, okay, now let's get started on this present. We're going to use the same color tones for the present. I want to add a little bit more turquoise to this because he's got so much red and green going on. So I'm going to use my B5. Why do I always say B5? B05 on the left side of the present. And then I'm going to add B02 as well to add my medium shade, leaving a small space on the right side of the present for the light. Because remember, our light's coming in from the right side, which means the light's right and the left is dark. So again, you do not have to do going over things twice. I just like the look of it. I like that it saturates the paper the first time, and the second time I can really get the colors to blend and pop. So I'm going to continue that process on the present with the B05, going in with the B02 for my medium shade, and then I'll go back to finish off the light side and the blend with my BG01. Now I just love the way that looks. I'll blend it together, but I'm feeling like it needs a bit more pink. That's my next color that I'm going to use. I like the pink in his cheek, so we're going to go with that. So I'm going to start with my RV23, and I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit on my bow, and then I'm going to take out my RV21, and I'm just going to go over right next to that. So there's just a little bit of dark and a little bit of light. It doesn't need to be a big deal. You don't need to stress on making this area perfect because, again, it's just a tiny detail. We just want a little bit of pink in there to go along with our color scheme. Okay, so I think I'm going to go ahead and do the ball in his hat pink too. I just like the idea of adding more pink because I really love that color scheme. You can use whatever you want though. Feel free to be as creative as you want to. This could be traditional Christmas colors, or it could be all blues and purples and silvers. So, I mean, let your imagination go wild. You can use the same concepts that I'm showing you here with different colors. All right, he's coming together. He looks so cute. But you know what? I forgot. We got to take our B00 and color it underneath the brim of his hat. I just completely forgot it. And speaking of forgetting, I totally forgot his hair. Okay, so choose whatever hair color you want. I like brown hair because I'm a brunette. So that's the way I usually color things, but you can use whatever you want. But I chose E17 here just to color little strands of hair to finish him off. And look, he's so cute and colorful. You guys did it. You made an amazing, cute little elf. All right, so let's move on to our next step here. And the next thing we're going to do are these jingle bells. I've chosen my colors, and I want to show you, even though red's in the color scheme, I just didn't like the way the bell was working on our little red plaid pattern. So I decided I'm just going to do the bells in the turquoise green and pink. All right, let's get started on these bells. I'm going to start by coloring the first one pink. We're going to add in a deeper pink, RV14, and I'm just going to start, again, left side of our image, working towards the right. The left is our dark, the right is our light. I'm going to go across the center and then add some pink at the bottom, and then also in the little holes that are inside the bell. I'm going to come back over with my RV23 and add my medium tone, just lightly blending. Remember, here you want to use that sunburn touch. Remember, like we talked about earlier? Really, really lightly, just with the tip, okay? The RV21 we're going to use to add our lightest tone on the edge, okay? Just kind of saturate it and go back over it a second time like we've been doing, so that way we can really get the colors blended together and so they'll pop. So this time when I go back over with my dark, I'm just going to add a little bit of pink over to that second little hole in the bell. I think it just looks better. And then we'll go back over with our medium and our light. And remember, if you're using that light touch and just the very tip of it, you can really control the color better. Okay, for the green bell, we're going to use our BG13, our YG06, and our YG23 combination. Same as before, but I don't know why, but my camera hates this combination of colors apparently, because it didn't record this part either. So I apologize, but we're going to use the same concept we did on the jacket and the shoes. So just go ahead and go through with your colors. Make sure you go over that the BG13 with the YG06, and then add your YG23. Okay, on to the bluebell. We're using the B05 to add our dark shadows. We're going over the center, we're going over the bottom little holes, everything we did before. And just make sure, again, you're using light touches, okay? And don't get frustrated. Keep going. Remember, if you make a mistake, it's just an embellishment opportunity. See what you can make out of it, okay? So let's go with our medium tone. It's B02. We're going to blend that on, leaving a little space for our light. And then we're going to go ahead and grab our BG00 and go over that for our light shade And again, we're going to go over it a second time so that we get all those colors blended together. We have our 3 little bells done. We've got our color scheme. So what I want you to do is just go through and color the remaining 3 bells. Okay, now we have all of our pieces. We have everything colored, and I'm going to use my zip dry here. You can use whatever adhesive you want. This stuff, once you glue it, it's not coming undone, which is why I love it. It does stink a little though. Now these are some just foam squares that I have. I just want to show you guys how thick they are because you can get them in various thickness, and I'm just using one that's not very thick at all. I think the really thick ones are too much. Of course, we have to have our crystal stickles because that's going to make it pop and that's going to make it amazing. So go ahead and take out our first piece, and we're going to start with our tag. Okay, so you can do whatever you want. You can put a sentiment on this. You know, you could put maybe journaling on it, whatever you want to do. But I really like the idea of putting our future little elf on my tag. So I'm going to do my elf. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue on my background. And fair warning, this stuff really does smell. So you might want to have a window open. But like I said, when I'm mailing things or giving things away, I want to use an adhesive that's really strong and it's not going anywhere. Okay, it does dry fast and it holds really nicely. So now I'm going to take my elf and I'm going to put my foam tape on the back. I like to use a lot. I want to make sure that he's completely covered on the back because sometimes if you forget like the little tiny areas, he'll warp and he'll bend, and I don't want that. You know, when you give away a gift like this to somebody, you want it to be absolutely perfect. So I'm just going to cut this up in tiny little squares, and I'm just going to add it to the end of his hat and down by his feet to make sure that he's not going to bend in any way, shape, or form, that he's going to be perfect. When you spend this much time on something, you want it to be able to sit right and to look perfect. Okay, so let's just peel off the back, and then we're going to stick him right in the middle, and he's going to be so stinking adorable, you guys. Wait till you see how cute he's going to be, okay? So let's just center him and put him right down in the center. That didn't even make sense. Center in the center. Okay, here is my favorite part. This is what I wait for. This is what I work towards, using my stickles. But here's the deal. We did all this great coloring, and we don't want to ruin it, right? So what I'm going to have you do is add stickles to the white part, to the highlight part that we left. That's where the light is shining, so that's where we're going to have our shine. So add the stickles without completely going over all your shading. You did all that wonderful coloring work, and we do not want to cover that up. So very lightly squeeze it on, and then just use the tip of the stickles to kind of spread it around. So that way it's really nice and thin. We don't want it super thick. Now I'm going to add the teeny tiniest amount to his buttons and a tiny bit to the present, because I don't think you can add sparkle just to one place. You got to have sparkle in a couple different places. Am I right? All right. So I've added it to the present, and now I'm going to do just a tiny bit maybe on his shorts, and then I'm going to finish up by putting a tiny bit on his buttons. Just a little dot. And you're going to see how it just adds so much magic and so much sparkle. It's so adorable. Now the next part here we're going to do, well first actually let's stop for a minute and admire our work because it's amazing. Am I right? He's so sparkly and so cute. He's just perfect. You know what's going to happen. You guys are going to make the sticker set. It's going to be so cute and you're going to love the work that you created. You're not going to want to give it away. Okay, so let's go ahead and do our titles, and all you're going to do is just put some glue on the back, center it, and put it together. You'll notice that I found 2 different sayings. I found Jingle All the Way and Merry Everything, which I thought was super cute, so use whatever sentiments you want. It doesn't have to be from the elf stamp set. Okay, so to put my bells together, I'm just going to put 1 foam square on the back and just center it. That's all I'm going to do. If you wanted to, you could add ribbon or mount it on another colored cardstock to add a border around it, but I'm just going to keep it really simple. I'm going to do the same concept here with my stickles, where I'm just going to add it in the light side of our coloring because we don't want to really mess up all that shading that we did. So you can see even when you add a tiny bit, it still makes it pop. It still looks really pretty. You don't have to cover the entire image with your stickles. All right, it's time to put our set together. I'm going to take this adorable Southwest stamp set by Art Impressions, and it's perfect packaging for what I need. So I store my stamps in a different way. I store them in the Jennifer McGuire kind of envelope way. So it's cool for me to use the package. It works perfectly. You can find another package if you want. I like this one, so I'm going to take it, and what I'm going to do is just cover it with some cute paper that coordinates with our set. And I like it's got the same tones as what I've been using. I took my scrap piece of paper and cut off this little matching strip to go at the top. So it will perfectly match our stamp set once it's all put together, and it'll be really cute. And then we just slide it back in the package when we're done. Here you can see I finished gluing it, and on the back I just used solid red cardstock and stamped Merry Everything over and over again. So that way it's just another way for everything to match. And I'm using just some Tombow to put here. Just a teeny tiny bit, because whoever I'm going to give this to, I don't know how they're going to use it, and so I don't want to put my own kind of adhesive on the back. I just want to add just enough to stick it down, so that way they can choose to use it however they want. And I have to say though, before I went ahead and glued this down, I arranged the pieces on the cardboard so I knew exactly where they were going to go. So that way I knew that there was enough room on it. So make sure that you do that before you decide to glue them down. And again, I'm just using a tiny amount to hold it down. I just want to hold it in place in the package. I don't want them to have to peel this off and the back of it peel off. So just use the smallest amount, and make sure that you're using an adhesive that peels off very easily, or maybe it is a repositionable adhesive. Tombow makes a really great repositionable adhesive. Ugh, say that word 3 times fast. That's a tongue twister. But they make a great one, and it's perfect for doing things like this. So now that it's complete and it's down, you can see it's such a cute little set, and it'll make such a great gift, you know, and you put so much of yourself into it. I'm sure like any friend or family member would love to receive something like that. I added a little bit of ribbon to the top and some little enamel little green dots to the sides of my sayings just to complete it. So thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out my blog for more tips and ideas and fun. Thanks a lot.